good evening, everyone, and also our Venerable Sirs, and then our Upasaka, Upasikas, means a lay person, devotees, as well as some friends. So anyway, good evening. Okay, what we are doing is that at this time, the first day, actually the second day, but I would like to count it as almost like the first day. This is the first talk in the second days of the meditation retreat. And we will take 1 hour, just give you some, maybe some Dharma talk. That in other words means some ideas about the Buddha's teachings. Can all of you hear me clearly? Is it better now? Okay. In all the Buddhist tradition, even though we have nowadays in Buddhism, in the Buddhist circle, so you might have say the Theravada Buddhism, and you might have so I like to call it as like a Chinese Buddhism, because many they use the language as a Chinese as the text, reference, and then as well as like the Theravada, many they use the Pali text as the main reference, and even like a Tibetan. That include even Mongolian also, they many use the Tibetan language text as the reference, right? No matter what tradition of Buddhism they are, but they will have several common things that they have to be taught, they have to taught people. And I like to address this today is more like the 3 things that definitely all traditions will share. One is that about the precepts, the virtue, okay? So we need to develop the virtue. In Chinese, like a jie, okay? And then the second is that we need to develop the samadhi, or the concentration. So in Chinese, called din, okay? And then the third one is that we need to develop the wisdom. So that in Chinese, we call the hui. And none of the Buddhist tradition will deny the importance and then the main factors of developing all of these in order to become a better persons. Okay. Like today mornings, I explained something about the 8 precepts, but we don't have to also understand the precept as just only the regulation. The better translation of the precepts, I like to put it back to the original way of translating the precepts mean the virtue. So everyone's will recognize that including in all country, including that, 其实海乐斯你可以小声一点. So that including that,
they all include virtue.
No, he's just hiding inside, just waiting. But I mean, for me, it's very hard to translate if I don't see the person. That's the reason why even in the United Nations, right, they have a kind of glass. The translator actually still see their leader there. We need to open a glass over there, maybe. Okay. Anyway, it's all right. So my understanding, I want to say actually in all nations and all countries, certainly recognizes the importance of the virtue. Okay, but now, so I'm sure that the virtue means that people has to be good persons, right? Person has to be disciplined, and then person has to be humble, right? Person must have really, basically, the best is without jealousy, and very kind, and very generous, right? So, and if you even ask any family, you said, how do you like your children will be? Even though they might have a wrong idea, if they want to give you kind of like idealistic understanding or idealistic wish, they will say, I want my children will be generous, very kind, very understanding persons, understandable persons, and helping, and very happy, right? and not stingy and all this sort of. Of course, sometimes they teach them to be stingy, teach them to be not generous, teach them not to trust people and all sort of things. But they know, actually, most of people understand what is meant by the virtue in some way. They might not necessarily know how to do it, and how really to be develop this kind of virtue. That including when I was in a school, like everybody know that you have to be a good person. No, I'm sure everyone knows this. But the problem is that sometimes when we don't have the right understanding, right way of understanding it, so we think that I'm a very good person because basically people, when they don't have a wisdom, they might make a wrong judgment that how to be a good person and so on. Now I like to put this as an important subject for today, that's why we have to do meditation. Okay. In Buddhism, that's why in Buddhism, one of the uniqueness of Buddhism, just now I said that it shares all the tradition. We talk about virtue, but you would not deny, you are not going to deny that other religions do not talk about virtues. They do talk about virtues. But among the other religions, one of the uniqueness of Buddhism also highly emphasis of the concentration, okay, and certainly as well as the wisdom. And definitely all other religions also try to say, none of the religion will tell you, my religion have no wisdom. Of course, all religion will also claim that they have wisdom. Now, before we really move on understanding what is wisdom, it's something that might be quite unique in Buddhism, is about the concentration. In other words, we have to understand the concentration in relation to the precepts, so-called the virtues, and in relation to the wisdom. So, in some way, the concentration become one of the very interesting and important subject for us, to have our so-called virtual life, for us to have a virtual life, and for us to develop the wisdom. Now, to begin, we talk much more subtle thing. Let us just investigate one thing. That is, when we need the concentration, what actually is concentration? If we talk about concentration, what really is the main thing about concentration? Do you talk about concentration because I have the concentration body as this physical body? Or do you talk about the concentration because you have the concentration mind? It's very clear to us that we do talk about concentration in order to understand concentration, or exclusively to the mind, not for the physical body. Okay. So, or you could say another way, or in other words to express it, that when we are discussing or expressing the ideas of concentration, we are also expressing the ideas about something about the mind. In other words, we are going to discuss what is the quality of the mind, and what is kind of quality of the mind in relation to the virtue. Okay. Now, before we have defining what is meant by the concentration, let us have some idea about the mind first. At least from the Buddhist perspective, as a human, of course, what is the most important as a human? For the philosophy, always say, a human has the wisdom, and the human is not animal. Okay, that's how in the old philosophy system, because the human had reason, right? And animal doesn't have reason. I'm not here to say whether animal have reason or not, but that's how we start to learn when we study philosophy. In other words, the human do have the reason, can think something. But from a Buddhist perspective, the difference between, not the difference, what is really the importance of the humans is not only because the understanding the human has the reasons, ability to reason, for reasoning, the ability for reasoning. It's also because we have the ability, basically we serve as a person, we know very well without this mind we will never be able to know who I am, basically, or what I am doing, or where I'm going to, or whether I'm still alive or not. Okay, at least this is so far settled down already. That kind of questions, like I know who I am. I am the one like this, like this, like this. Maybe for philosophical discussion, you have maybe question, what really ultimate of me? That's another question, but you know that's you. Your mind telling you who you are, and then your mind also telling you you're eating, your mind also telling you that you're listening or you're not listening, right? Your mind also giving you a quality that makes you to know, basically giving you a kind of quality that you know that's who you are. Am I right? Okay. And that's the reason. So, and also that mind also give you a kind of quality or senses, ability that you know you're seeing, you're hearing, you're smelling, you're tasting something, or even you know what you're thinking about. So that actually is how you live yourself as the whole universe. Okay. Maybe a small one, but then that's how the world you are. I'm sure, for 100% sure, always I said, what you see me and what I see myself, it can be very different, right? You might be thinking, oh no, I look at you, that's you. But the way that I look at myself can be very different from the way you look at me, okay? Right, then when we know that that's the mind, so after all sort of reasoning, after all kind of reasoning, to yourself, you might come to at least understand your mind should be understand as the most important one. I don't know whether you agree. But of course, if you are not trained in such a way, you always think that what is become more important to you will be your physical, of course, right? And for example, we always want to be more healthy. We always wanted to be, feel the love there, right? We always wanted to be, no, actually not feel the love is a mental. You always wanted to be more healthy, you always wanted to be look younger, you always wanted to have the best way of physical, right? But unfortunately also we understand, even though how much we try to retain this kind of physical, we had about to face disappointment sometimes, right? But the mind, sometimes we can easily ignore it and neglect it, okay? Now, think about one thing. When we are feeling suffering, what makes you suffer? Recently, I have a lot of suffering in my life, so I definitely had to think about that very deeply. What makes you suffer? Is that because of physical makes you suffer, or because your mind makes you suffer? I think, I don't know, maybe some people are still a little younger. No, my physical. But really think about what makes you really suffer. Is that the physical makes you suffer, or the mind makes you suffer? That's one thing. And the second, also think about this. If the mind makes us suffer, so how you should solve the problem? Do you solve the problem through the physical, or you need to solve the problem to the mind? And also, okay, and where the suffering comes from? Does the suffering come from because of physical, or because the suffering comes from the mind? Okay, another more question. If the suffering comes from the mind, where is the suffering? Does the suffering stay in the mind, or the suffering stay in the body? Do you have an answer? It depends. Okay. All right. Okay. Let me, since you say it depends, so let me give example. One example and see that it depends, all right, cases. I get ill, let's say, and let's say if one thing unfortunately comes to me that I got cancer, for example, okay, and then the doctor say, oh, Dhammadeva, you have 1 month lifespan only. Of course, I get shocked and I suffer. Firstly, I suffer is because I was shocked, because I didn't expect. Okay. And then the second, maybe I was actually about to have somebody promise me to give me many, many important things. Okay. And then I think, what? And I thought that I'm going to have this thing maybe in a month, in a year time. Now I have only 1 month time, so I won't have this thing. This thing will go. So I also get suffer. Okay, that is also belong to mental. I'm sure you know. All right. What about then when the cancer really acting up, really active, and then I feel very painful, right? I get suffer. I think that's what you mean by depends. That definitely is a physical one, okay? But the strange thing is this, even though it depends, it's true, because Buddhism always talk about the mind could be influenced by our physical. However, now let us just think something else. Ultimately, down to earth, what is really more crucial? Is it the physical or the mental? Say that even though if the suffering was, the cancer cell was eating me up. And then maybe somebody just, while I was really suffering, somebody just beside me and say, hey, Dhammadeva, and anyway, he says something very nice. Say that, give me a big promise, say, don't worry, when they're eating you up, if I'm really like a very naive, say, just give me one example, and then you will see the heavens, for example. Oh, when I just mentioned heavens, it's roaring now. And then when that happened, actually that moment, even that the physical gave me this, the cell eating me up, that moment maybe can last for 1 minute or 2 minutes, or even maybe perhaps 5 minutes to 10 minutes. That moment, I don't feel suffer. Right? So I'm saying this, I don't mean that the physical will not affect you, but we still have to back to the one of the very crucial thing, what then really become the matter. Well, maybe actually when they're eating me up, maybe I like these kind of feelings too. Of course, this is rare, but and it also can be conditioned by other thinking is maybe, actually I want to die soon because I don't care my life already and I bought the insurance. If I die this way, there were $1 billion given to somebody I really care, you know, because I hate my life the whole time. So it can be really, really being conditioned by really different factors. But I want to give this saying, just want to show that it looks like, I'm not here to say the 100% thing, but it looks like our mind is a crucial, actually, whether you are suffering or not, how you really guard your mind is really one of the very crucial things. Another thing is also in our life, it is believed that there are so many good people around, but there are also so many bad people around you, right? So depends how you define the bad people, but for sure there are bad people around you. So what you have to do, so we have to be a virtual person. For example, in other words, I mean, when the bad people are really around you, you have to show, oh, you are very kind. People are, what we say that they slap you one face, you let them to slap you another face. Or sometimes people knowing that they want to, because when you try to show your humbles and they will just step over you, right, and punch you down, what you should do. So, and then of course, because of this thing could happen in our life, don't? No? So let's say when you walk up to the street, maybe people holding a gun, right, or holding a knife, or maybe people start to threaten your life, threatening to you, what do you have to do? So this how we develop a virtue. Okay, we all know that we need to be good, but how can we be good in that way? You have something to say? Okay.
To answer your question, because there is like 11 virtues of practice loving kindness meditation, and one of them is just nobody's gonna harm you by weapon. So I guess that could be the answer.
It could be the answer, but we have to understand what does it mean. But do you mean that, do you want to take that really literally? Means when I have a loving kindness and the people use this, I don't know, I never know the guns, but say the very powerful missile, how to say that, say that gun, just a gun. Are you going to say that even if a person loving kindness is so powerful, and then the gun will just 刀枪不入, so shoot and it would not come in? So do you want to take that literally? I don't know whether, I do believe it might happen, but it has to be really, 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 really powerful. But I mean in general, if you don't want to take that literally, it might have other meanings there, okay? Now, I think that what I want to say is that at the moment, we understand the mind is very important. And then even we want to develop the virtue, if this threat come to your life, if those things come to your life, and how you can still develop the virtue. How do you really understand the virtue from that, I would say that from one of the Buddhist perspective. Okay, we know that our mind can be very beautiful, and we know that our mind can be very ugly. And then these bad, so-called bad people around, or so-called there are people, the Buddhism believe that people being reincarnated or be born in the very bad, woeful place. They have unfortunate thing. Why they will be born in those unfortunate places? Why there are people who are not good? Why people are some can be bad? It's all because originate from the mind, right? Originate from the mind. So when these things originate, if you have questions, we can ask later, shall we? So when all these originate from the mind, if we understand this originate from the mind, in other words, we must also know the crucial thing is how we got our mind to. So, and maybe the one of the easier solution to do is also to solve not from any other place but from the mind. Let me find one of the interesting question. Actually, in one of the Buddhist texts say, it's believed that the Buddha, the past Buddha, because anyone wanted to become a Buddha has to perfect their paramita, right? The perfection, bolomi in Chinese. So they had to be perfect in the paramita. But now look at the world now. You still have very hunger persons around. You still have bad people around. Just say that, the hunger, and say about there are people who are actually miserable. They don't have money for education. They don't have money for any other thing, right? So, but then you also said, there are so many Buddha in the past practice the perfection. What is perfection? What we call the 布施波罗蜜, the donation, what we call this generosity, perfection of generosity, right? But you said he perfected generosity perfection. But how can then still there are people doesn't get all this generosity and still live in poverty? Oh, you didn't get a question? Did I ask? No? Do you know my questions? No?
Say it again.
The question says, because all the past Buddha has to perfect their generosity perfection in order to become the Buddha. And then all of them become the Buddha already. And that in rational understanding, that suppose nowadays there is no person should be in poverty now. Okay. In other words, how do you understand what is meant by the generosity perfection of the generosity? Because without perfecting the perfection of generosity, no one can be a Buddha. Okay? I think, okay, it's a very boring subject maybe.
Buddha is an enlightened person.
No, but no. That's another thing. Of course, he's enlightened. The Buddha is an enlightened person. We still have to understand, according to the Buddhist teachings, Someone become a Buddha has to perfect at least 6 perfection, right? One of the perfection is mean the generosity. But those past Buddha have done the generosity, but still we have this poverty, right? Okay, so that question actually, it can be understand is about if we put our direction back to our mind. So it is called the Buddha in the past have done all the generosity, the perfection of the generosity. It is because they, or including ourselves, been encouraged to do so. Is that because we let our mind to be abandon all the attachment. To attachment, and then also by abandoning all the attachment, we giving our best blessing to all the beings. That's how the generosity been done. So-called the perfecting the perfection of the generosity. Okay. I know this is a little hard topic, but this is not our main topic. But I want to just relate to the topic. What we are going to talk is about. So in the same way, if there are so many bad people in the world, and all these bad people, why do you call them a bad people? Not because they look bad, it's because their mind is bad, right? So that's why we have to be, when we have to understanding that something that important for Buddhism is how you should guard your mind to begin with. To guard your mind for what? To guard your mind in order so that you have the concentration and then to develop the virtue and develop the wisdom. So now, our mind sometimes is so interesting, you can use an animal to describe it. Sometimes our mind can be like what? Like a ghost, so horrible. You can fear yourself too. I don't know whether you fear ghosts, but you know what I mean. And then sometimes our mind can be like an animal. It can be so angry, so dangerous, right? And then sometimes our mind can be even, of course, so cute, like a cat. I don't know whether this cat is cute, but sometimes our mind can be so tender, like a little baby. So if you understand this is how our mind is, and of course at the same time, you definitely understand that how we should really, save our mind. We might be trying many ways. All people think they are the good person. No? Do you believe that? In other words, we all try to hide our animal mind, right? The fearful one, it could be the demonic one, it can be hurtful one, dangerous one like a tiger, can eat you, can kill you, or like a snake can be sneaky, right? And any type of thing, like an animal. So we have to recognize that that's part of me. In other words, our mind can be sometimes very beautiful, but sometimes the mind can be very different. And we also recognize that when you see other people, the other people, if we label them as a bad person, maybe, I said maybe, is because most of the time their mind is just like animals. Okay. At times that even, I'm sure even the so-called the worst person in the world, sometimes they can be very nice to their own children. Right? The story tells that. Right? So, if we understand this is the thing, and then this is why we talk about meditation. Only when we understand the mind can be so tender, so wonderful, and then the mind can be so horrible, and then we know, in the world here now, nothing is more important than to tame your mind. Nothing is more important than that. Of course, we've spent a lot of time to try to, beautify your face, buy very expensive cosmetic, lets you look really beautiful, attractive. I don't mean that you don't do that, It's just, that we do. But that's okay. The thing it is, unfortunately, if we forget to make our mind beautiful. Actually, in Buddhism, we have a term, 庄严心, 庄严其心. So that's the reason why even in Buddhism say that the highest, the best of the generosity is when you practice the Four Sublime Abiding Meditation that makes your mind beautiful. Is actually been regarded, in Buddhist concept, it's interesting, regard that as the beautifying mind by practicing meditation, by practicing the Four Sublime Abiding Meditation. Why? Now we need to back that now. We need to learn to fear sometime. When I say fear here, not to get angry with yourself, but to fear that when your mind is not well tamed, how can that be? Look at the people around you. If the people around you is always when they become evil, when they become bad, it's always when the mind is not tamed. Right? When the mind is well tamed, well trained, you could say that, so they always become generous, very nice, very kind. And then from there, you make the determination. You have to be always understand, at least nothing in the world is more important than if you safeguard your mind. Okay. I don't know whether you agree, but you maybe disagree later. Okay, that's all right. But I want to say this, only when you can recognize this, you definitely will be really pay very much attention on your meditation. Because you might be trying anyway, pretend to be nice. Why? Right? You go to a place, you have to pretend to be friendly, pretend to be nice to a people. Of course you know very well, you pretend to be nice to people, to be pretty friendly to people, not because just show that you are a virtuous person, it also gives you a lot of benefits, right? Right? Okay, because it gives you a lot of benefit. Now, can we do something without pretending? So, that's why this is linked to the concentration, that linked to what the virtue is about. According to the Buddhist understanding, one way of doing it, yes, you can, is that you need to practice the loving kindness, your compassion, or your joy meditation, that we are going to learn later, or you practice equanimity. That it is actually, it is always almost like that's a very down to a nature of your mind, that you just let that kind of good quality, what we call the wholesome mind, can flow. Okay? If you don't do that, you'll be worse than the mad elephant. You know, in old days, when the elephant get mad, what happened? They destroy everything, right? The same thing in our mind. When your mind gets mad, you destroy everything. Didn't you see that? Nowadays you can easily find the YouTube or clips and look at these people when they get angry, they destroy everything. And after they regret the whole life. So that mind actually is worse than the mad elephant. The mad elephant just coming, destroying, but sometimes the mad mind, the anger mind, and then that kind of mind can even destroy the whole country. You know, usually when you get very angry or very proud, the bad mind comes to. So when you get, what? How can you just do this to me? We are the best nation. You know, you will just decide one button, the Messiah will flow, right? When they're happy, I don't think they will do that. They don't want to press this button. But you know, when the animal mind become predominate and become, you never, especially when you don't train it, always regard, you do have this thing there, and then you might be foolishly and do this sort of act. Okay. All right. Now, when we understand this part, we really know that make the determination to train our mind, it becomes the most crucial thing to be a better person. So one way of training the mind to Buddhist understanding definitely has to do meditation, but they might have many methods. One way of it doing is, so you need to train your mind always, first at least at this stage, must develop this either the loving kindness mind, compassion or joys and so on. Okay? Because when you have the love, when you have these joys, when you have this compassionate mind, you would never want to hurt anyone. And then this, you can, through your own experience in your life, that you always just wanted to, basically you just, it's a way to, because it's a way you tame your, what I call as the mad elephant mind. You tame the mad elephant mind, almost like you have a rope to tie that mad elephant on a pole with your loving kindness mind, and then the mad elephant will slowly will calm down. Okay? When that's your mind, the bad, unwholesome mind, or what's so-called the mad elephant mind, being calmed down, then you started to see something, purpose in your life. So you become a very genius person. So you become always a very understandable person, and you basically mean you would not become part of the animal. Okay? And one crucial problem is also, how about even if I walk on the street, let's back to that, there are bad people around. How about even when there are people around you, there can be bad people around you. How? Because people, when they have this animal with their mind, they don't know, they don't train, they will be like that. In other words, how can I save myself? If I walk on the street and then there's a tiger here, there's an elephant there, there's a lion there, how? And then the Buddha say, actually, this is from Buddha's teaching. So once you're able to let your mind to be completely tame, and then you don't worry about this, you don't have fear in you, and this thing is almost not exist. Okay. I don't know whether you agree. Let me give you one example. Say that somebody you don't like around you, but at least to you to think that person is not good. Okay, I'm not here to judge whether it's good or not. This is not here to discuss about that. And then, but because every time when you see the person is not good, well, how do you feel? You feel unhappy. So let's say you almost look at the person almost like he's a tiger. In order to help yourself, you need to create another tiger within you, right? So if he's going to bite you, and you need to bite him back, right? And of course, that means that you would, usually what we understand when you have, the mind is like a tiger, it means you are getting anger, okay? So the anger comes to you. So what you have to do is that if you can tame this anger, and you see this tiger around you, but you don't feel the threat, you don't feel the fear. When the threat and the fear disappear, the problem itself is solved. No? Looks like not everybody agree with me, okay? I need to find a better example. Okay, the easy example actually is like, don't say about the meditation, even it might be difficult. Meditation I'm going to define later, so a little longer, but say some more easy example, the example like the life, right? When there's somebody you always don't like the person there. So let's say a person is maybe you think is evil, bad, but when you have, when one day suddenly, when you're very happy, when you're very joyful, okay, and then that kind of joyful and then the happy become much more stronger to you, and then even that bad person is there, you just it doesn't mind, it doesn't threat you, you won't fear the person, you are not afraid of everything like as you usually do, right? Okay, so now imagine that, because when you have a joy, it replaces your fear, it replaces your other thing. So that's why like a mind, when you have an animal mind and then we have the good mind, when the good mind become predominantly there, and then the animal mind will just be subside down, right? And that subside down is not only helping you to live nicely, it's also will help you to defend yourself by external reasons. The external reason means like you hear something, you don't like it, you don't feel so bad, okay? And external upset like what you see, and then you don't feel so bad. This is one part. So this is how actually you started to develop much, much deeper and better of your virtue. You are not rationing yourself to be just pretending you be nice, but you really become genuinely nice to the person. Okay. Still you understand the person is like an animal, but you just genuinely nice. Right? And then with that genuine nice to the person, you also develop a very nice kind of what I want to say is that a benefit. You develop a lot of good beneficial thing to you. Like I just mentioned before, why you want to try to be nice to people? Because you know very well that is only good for you, right? So it become when you're genuinely nice to people, of course, then that is still benefit to you. So this is why ultimately we must recognize that the mind as the crucial point for your practice. So if we know that the mind is the main thing that for our practice or in our life, the most thing is to train our mind, then we must try to meditate. Because only when you do this meditation, you have started to diverse your mind, yourself, to look what happened with your mind first. Just like what we are doing in meditation, some people complain, it could be complain that I'm sitting meditation, I got so many thoughts comes to me. But this is a good time to you to know that what happened with even yourself. Even if you cannot control your mind, how can you really can control the other, basically? I'm not asking you to control the other. No way. See, that's your mind. That is basically, that is something within you. You should be able to make it better. But if you cannot, why you want to claim that you can make the other word better? Okay. So from there, we train ourselves by recognizing that we have a good mind, we have the bad mind, and then we need to develop a good mind and let the good mind to flow. That is what at least now what we are doing, that to practice a loving kindness meditation. Okay. When this good mind be flow all the time, and what kind of bad mind will not arise? Anything that relate to, anything that against the good mind, anything that relate to the anger will not arise. Okay, maybe that you can like to call them like the mind like a tiger, like a snake, whatever. But important is that the anger will not arise. Now, if you're able to control your mind in such a way, and then at least minimize the anger arises, and a lot of benefit happens to you. That is that you see the goodness of you. Okay? Which actually a lot of time people don't see they have the goodness there. When they're angry, actually usually they, trust me, I don't know whether you believe or not, this at least I believe myself, lots of the time when you're angry, lots of the time when you get anger, not because you anger other things, you anger yourself more than any other. It looks like not true, nobody say yes. I said, lots of the time when we get anger over some other things, right? Either person or whatever, or event, something happened. But I think highly percentage of the time, highly probable that we anger ourselves more than other. Okay? No? Yes. Okay. Then at least few people say yes. If you don't understand, you can ask them why they say yes. Maybe they can explain better than me. And anyway, so then this is important because if we don't direct our mind to look at this, we don't really value our meditation. We must learn how to value our meditation also, not because I'm here to wash your brain. No, You have to think about what you shouldn't direct yourself to look at it. Firstly, you need to settle down your mind. Otherwise, that's why around the world there's so many bad people. And I can be bad people one day too. The day that I can be bad people is only when I don't settle down my mind. I don't tame my mind. That's clear, right? And then beside that, if I tame my mind, what happens? If I tame my mind, I will be a better person. And I know I can be a genuine person. I don't need to pretend. Because why I need to pretend? Normally, it's because I want to get benefit, right? So it can genuinely just to do it, and then you also get benefit. That's what the second thing I want to say. The third thing, the further, is also, I just say that lots of time when we get anger, the reason why we get anger, right? Lots of time why we get anger is not because anger comes from external. Ultimately, you hold on something, anger, you anger with yourself, right? So this is also, in other words, you have allowed yourself to have this animal state in your mind, okay? Of course, it's not easy if you've been there for a long time. So we have a Chinese proverb to say, right? 情深容易送神难嘛, huh? So yeah, before, sometimes when you have to love it, it's not easy at first to do it. So you need to learn how to safeguard your mind first. This I want to move on to talk that. The way that you have, when we say the safeguard of mind, that only two things in Buddhism. Usually in tradition, we say only two things. You have to develop the awareness, in other words, mean the mindfulness, and then you have to develop this right comprehension. Okay. So when we say the mindfulness, it means you develop something like you know whatever thing appear, whatever thing disappear, whatever thing comes, whatever thing goes. That's what we call awareness or mindfulness, right? And then you have to develop the so-called right comprehension. It means you have to know every action you are doing, including your bodily actions, or anything happening in your mind or in the body is called the right comprehension. I mean, this is as a short definition of the right comprehension. In Chinese, 正知, okay, 就是正念跟正知, 知是的知道的知, 正知. And then with that, right mindfulness and right comprehension, that's how you safeguard your mind. And when you can safeguard your mind, in other words, you also develop your virtue. But the truly down-to-earth virtue you can develop is only when you goodly safeguard your mind, right? So you know what's happening with your mind. But if you don't know what's happening with your mind, something what you call as a virtue, it can be not a genuine one. Okay? Right. Okay. Then, when by this safeguard your mind, after some times, so that's what we say, the 8 precepts is just a guideline for you. Like when you observe the 8 precepts. But when you have this safeguard of my mind, like, I don't want to rely on listening to the music to make me happy, but I have to watch my mind. My mind sometimes want to go there, but now I need to see, I cannot feed this kind of animal all the time. But, there's some animals like that, when you feed them, they're happy. When you don't feed them, they bite you, right? So now you need to tame this kind of animal. So first, as I say, safeguard means you well observe the behavior to be disciplined, basically. Maybe put it this way. When you're in the discipline, slowly, and then how to not only just discipline and slowly, and you need to build up something strong side of you. Your strong side of you mean your wholesome mind, your good mind has to be developed, cultivated. When that's the strong side of mind, you need to let it to be cultivated and cultivate. One of that powerful one is the loving kindness. So you have to need it that become the good one of you become really powerful. And if you can let this kind of the loving kindness mind, like the wholesome mind, let it be continual flow, in one direction incessantly without stopping, then samadhi will arise. Okay, that's what we call the concentration will arise. So I give you one, let me finish the theory first. So this is one way of defining what is meant by the samadhi. So imagine when that good mind flow incessantly and the samadhi arises, you then build up the good thing about your virtue also, right? Because the safeguard itself, safeguard of your mind itself is a virtue, but when your samadhi develop, you only have the good mind, almost. Of course, then you're a virtual person. You develop virtue because you want to protect your mind, but then when you develop your mind, you actually back to developing your virtue. Okay. Get it? Get the sense now. So and then this samadhi or this kind of wholesome mind, when you always, if you can always keep this wholesome mind, then the anger will not arise. When the anger will not arise, you started to see much more about a subtle thing of might be the big animals gone, but there's many hidden problem on your mind still could be affect you, right? Many, of course, according to Buddhist teaching, is many because of craving. So, but if you have the stable mind, when you understand this kind of thing, how they affect you, then the wisdom will arise. Okay. This is, I think I need to end the talk today. I don't know whether it get you more confused or you have a better understanding. But let me just conclude a little bit. Why we have meditate? Why we need to meditate? Because we want our mind better. And then why you need your mind better? Because I know sometimes my mind is not better. Okay, so if I meditate, because depends on how to understand meditate, but if I meditate, how can it be good for my mind? Because if you meditate, remember, it's not to show people you meditate. It's because if I meditate, I can develop the wholesome mind. So if I can develop a wholesome mind, then my mind will be better. And this one thing. Second, and if I meditate, not only because I develop a wholesome mind, my mind will be better, it's also because my wholesome mind will help me to actually, to help me to grow my virtue. Okay? Am I right? It's not only just that the wholesome mind will help you to grow your virtue, become much more genuine, much more direct, much more really what we call the Buddha nature, that's you. And also, it helps you to develop a lot of understanding of yourself. Okay? And then you become a what kind of person? Supposedly, I mean, this is just presumption. And then you become a person knowing what happened to you, how you should deal with a thing, where you should deal with a thing. Right? It looks like some people think I'm talking nonsense, but it's all right.
So we can be happy and free.
Not only just happy and free, you develop a wisdom. So, and this is, and if you understand, this is really the main thing, then you will not slide on doing your meditation. I always tell people when I get mad sometimes, why you are not happy today? Because I'm lazy. Why I say I'm lazy? Because I didn't safeguard my mind well. And I didn't do my concentration well. And that's why my wisdom doesn't come. And that's why I get mad, that's why I get sad, that's why I get lots of problems. Okay? That's why we have a term called heedlessness. Because when we are heedless, and then we just let this kind of animal comes to me. And you have no way to solve this outside animal, they're always there. Because they are people, they just want to be there. Not that they want to be actually, according to Buddhism, they're ignorance. They don't know they should do that, right? But if I don't, the worst thing is if I don't do this way, I will become one of them. So, right? So what is more important then? Not my physical body for sure, because my physical body, I may die one day. But you also in your life, you have seen people very ill, but a very nice person, right? But you had seen people very strong, very healthy, horrible person. You want to associate these ill, nice people, or the strong, healthy, horrible person? You make the choice, right? So this is, if we understand this, then I'm sure that tonight and tomorrow, you definitely work harder for your meditation. I don't know about you. Trust me, that's how actually I motivate myself. Yeah, because the more you see the problem, the more you know I really need to work harder. So, okay. Now this is my advice for the today, to begin the talk, and then hope you that will one day, you definitely one day you'll be a much better person, okay? Or maybe even a perfect person like a Buddha. Okay, thank you for that. We have a 10 minutes break and then we're back here to do meditation. Oh yes, when we come back, you have to pick up maybe 4 persons in the group, okay? Okay, all right.